Now, learning objective C wants us to define what kind of symmetry a graph has, that is rotational or reflective, and to actually state where it happens. So let's consider this function up here, this f of x. They want us to give the equations for the asymptotes of the graph and then describe any lines or points of symmetry. Well, I want us to practice graphing this by hand without a calculator. So when you look at this equation, the first thing I'd ask is what's the parent function? So we would strip out the plus 3 and the minus 7, which would leave us with this parent function of 1 over x squared. Now, if I graph that, by the way, if I remember what that parent function looks like, it does have some asymptotes, so I'm going to put those right there. And it is going to look roughly like that. So that's our parent function. Well, what's the translation rule? Remember, they're asking how did the ordered pair move? Well, it's always backwards for the x, so the x's are really going minus 3. And depending where the y value is, if it's on the other side and not with the y, it's just what I see, so it's y minus 7. Or remember, our book will come in and they'll regroup that 7 with the y and rewrite the equation to look like this. And when all of the values are grouped with their appropriate letter, so again, when the number's with the x, you always go backwards. When the number's with the y, you would go backwards. So instead of plus 7, that's why it's minus 7. So in words, what this graph is going to do is move left 3 and down 7. Okay. Well, second part, they want us now here to state the parent's symmetry in the asymptote. Well, the parent function is here. The symmetry on this one is it does reflect over the y-axis, so reflect over y-axis, and that's where it happens. And then state the asymptotes. I'm just going to write the equations here. This is y equals 0, and this one here is x equals 0. Okay, now let's switch gears and look at the translating this and seeing where it lands. Well, a couple things you can do. What you can do is really just use this ordered pair rule. Well, if the old asymptote was at x equals 0 and y equals 0, put 0 in for x and 0 in for y and see where it moves to. So 0 for x would say the new asymptote goes to x equals negative 3. Okay. 0 for y would say that one is going to move to y equals negative 7. So what I'm going to do to sketch this is actually move the asymptotes to there. Or a nice way to do it is take the intersection of the asymptotes and literally move right 3 and down 7. If you do, you're going to end up right here. Well, if you sketch those asymptotes, they're going to be exactly what I figured out mathematically. So if you look at the equation, this one here is at x equals negative 3. And this guy here is at y equals negative 7. So you can do it one of two ways to figure out where they land. Now let's resketch the graph. All I have to do is put the shape of the parent function within the asymptotes, and we will have the new graph. So did we answer the question? State the new asymptotes? Yes. Now we didn't talk about the symmetry. The symmetry of this new graph is it is going to reflect over the line x equals negative 3. So be very specific in talking about where the reflection happens. Here's one more for us to practice. Consider this particular parabola and talk about the symmetry that it has and where it is. So again, let's talk about the parent function of the parabola first. That's just y equals x squared. So I'm going to sketch the parent function in here so we remember what we're dealing with. It's a rough sketch. And then we're going to identify the translation rule, the parent function symmetry, and so forth. So the translation rule here again, remember it's always backwards for the x, so it's x minus 3. And if the numbers on the other side are already solved, it's what we see for the y, so y minus 10. Or again, what the book would have done is they would have brought the 10 over to here. They would have had y plus 10 equals x plus 3 minus 2. And then everything's backwards. Instead of x plus 3, it's minus. And because the 10's with the y, instead of plus 3, it's minus. So choose whichever way you want to do that. Now, describing the symmetry of this particular graph, what we do see here is it is reflective again over the y. So this reflects over the y-axis. And there is no asymptote to a parabola. Now let's translate it. All I'm going to do for that is I'm going to take the vertex of this current parabola, and why don't I just move it negative 3, 10. So either one of two ways. The vertex is at 0, 0. If I put it in the ordered pair rules, it's just going to move to negative 3, negative 10. Or I just take the current vertex and move left 3 and down 10. When you do that, we're right here. Do a quick sketch of the parabola. Now, describing this parabola symmetry, there looks like here the reflection is now moved. So the symmetry is this now reflects over the line, careful, crosses the x-axis at negative 3, over x equals negative 3.